guys, and welcome to another video. And in this one I will be talking about my experience with none other than Lidl. Just a little bit of a forward posting videos in the future. Within the next couple of hours or couple of days, I would say, more realistic, I will be posting a video of every experience that I've had with every business that I worked for. And those businesses were three major businesses in retail in the UK. One of them is Lidl, where I've been for 4 years, M&S, where I've ended up staying 1.5 years, and then Co-op, where I stayed for another year. And I'll be sharing my experiences within those three businesses, the pros and cons within each one of them, and what my experience has been like. Now, before we move any forward, I want to say that my objective is not to discourage you from applying for the job. It's to give you as much information as I can possibly do, to give you a more overall idea of what an internal person who's working in these businesses, what the business looks like. And also something that I want you to keep in mind is that there are major companies in the UK. They are large, all of them, or three of them. The smallest one between three of them is probably Marks and Spencer's, even though they've been the oldest. And they were a franchise as well. For example, Lidl, they have over 1,000 stores, 9 different RDCs, and hundreds of areas to work with. And all of them, they work differently. They have different leadership styles, different life ideas, different goals, different work ethics. It all changes within the areas. M&S is the same. The one I've worked for is a franchise M&S. They are located in 74 different areas in the UK. And Co-op is the same, with 2,400 stores throughout the country. So everything is different. Something that you need to keep in mind is that no business is perfect, by all means, just like a person. There's going to be flaws. Some are more productive than others are more expensive than others, others rely on their people a lot more, others don't really care, others see them as numbers, others see them as assets. It depends on where you go, and all the time, I say this all the time, it depends on what your boss and management is like as well. So do keep that in mind before you make any sort of decision on what to take on from the video. So the way the videos are structured is I will give you a little bit of background of what I was in the company and what I've done, and I'll give you pros and cons within 5 categories that I think every employee should search for within the business they're applying to make an informed decision. And these 5 categories are work and life balance, development and security, pay, benefits, management, and culture. So the 5 different categories that I think everyone should take in mind. And within those categories, I'll give you a pro and a con within them, just so I don't make this video too long. And if anything, if you have any questions or anything like that, just post them on the comments, and by all means, I will come back to you as soon as I can. Right, so let's get into it. So, the big animal in the UK, the big on quality, the little on prices. Something that you need to keep in mind, and this is going to be the absolute biggest suggestion, because I can't really give you advice, but this is a suggestion in my opinion, that you need to implement in your core belief to know what Lidl is about. Lidl is a company that's been around for a long time, hasn't been that long in the UK. It's more or less 26 years if I'm correct. And it's considered a discounter in the UK. The way they do business is very simple. They offer limited stock rather than selling popcorn, sweet popcorn, popcorn with sweet and salt, caramel popcorn, and some other stuff. And it's just to give you an example, they sell popcorn. That's it. And that's the way they do business. They limit the stock, the amount of stock they get into the store in big quantities within that stock. And they put the stamp a very low price on it. They make extremely low margin within that product, and that's how they make their money, and that's how the prices are so low. Now, one thing that you need to think about is, why are the prices that low? You know, is it really just because they cut down the limit of stock that they put in the shelves? No. The reality is that they make cuts somewhere else. They make their work environment as efficient and productive as possible by running it with strong individuals and low productivity levels, and cutting down the numbers of individuals that they have in store. To give you a very core example, between Co-op and Lidl, Co-op has 2,400 stores. Now keep in mind, this is very small stores. The store that I was running in Co-op made £70,000 a week, my hours were 435 I had to spend within that week if I achieve my target. In Lidl, you get 325 productivity hours for 1 week, and you make 300,000 a week. That's not unusual and unheard of in Lidl. What is that transparent? What is that transferred to in physical terms? It means that in co-op I would have 5 people on each shift, morning, afternoon, and potentially someone in the middle. In Lidl you'll have 3, and one of them will be your manager. That's how they operate their stores. They limit the amount of people that they have on the floor and in the business, which is, like everyone potentially knows, the biggest expense for the business is employees and people. They are expensive. They're a whole bunch of stuff that we don't really have to go into, but that's where they cut down the most. So taking the core belief away, let's jump into the 5 categories. So the number 1 is work-life balance. Straight off the bat, Lidl is non-existent. You won't have a work-life balance with Lidl, especially in a managerial role. Now, like I said, every area is different. You might start on time, leave on time in certain areas. Other areas are busier. Other stores have issues. People called in sick, work's left behind, and so on and so forth. But I've been there and done that. To give you a bit of an idea on how many hours I've done in a week, I've done well over 80 hours in 1 week. I believe that in this week I worked for the 7 days, and the biggest shift I've done, which was within this week, was 30 hours long. That's what work-life balance means for Lidl. If you are in a managerial position, anywhere from assistant manager to store manager, you'll be doing 47.5 hours. That's excluding breaks, so you need to add half an hour for each break, or an hour if you want to take it. Just keep in mind that if you do take the 1 hour, you need to add that extra half hour. So rather than 47.5 hours, you'll be doing 50 if you take only half an hour, and if you add the other half an hour extra if you take an hour break, then you need to add those 2.5 hours more of your contract. So it's 52.5 hours if I'm not a nuisance in math. Now, what does this create? But that is a con, in my belief, that Lidl's got. The positive thing about that is that you always have a manager present. Manager starts at 5 a.m. If a store opens at 8, they start at 5 a.m. They will end up leaving at 3, and then you'll have the afternoon manager coming in at 12 and then leaving at 9. If the store closes at 9, you close at 10 o'clock. You have 1 till 11. That's how it works. You always have a manager present. That will be a pro. Do keep in mind that in my experience within those 4 years is, even though 47.5 is your contract, you potentially end up doing 60-65 hours a week. That's not unheard of. I've done it all the time. Like I said, the week that I've done the most was 80, and the longest shift was 30. So, work-life balance was, out of these 5 categories, is probably the worst one and the most negative one. But yeah, moving on from there. Now, pay and benefits. Now, the benefits part of it varies from person to person, from role to role, I mean. If you're a customer assistant, the benefits are quite simple. You do get discounts on certain memberships, and gym memberships, and days out and stuff like that. The more generic stuff, you do get a pension scheme. You get a walk to work scheme as well. The salary that you get is above average within the UK. They call it the living wage. I personally don't think it's true, because 950 equals 1,400 or 1,350 or 1,400 a month. That's not enough to afford a house in certain areas of the country, if any area within the country. So for me, that's not a working wage or life wage, or whatever they call it. So yeah, but 950 is still above average within the UK. So not so bad. And then you have the benefits. They get 25 days of holidays, depending on length of service. Some customer assistants have all the way up to 35, and depends how long you've been within the business. The pro is that salary increases every year, all the way to I believe 10.45 at the moment for customer assistant, or 11. I'm not entirely sure now, and that increases all the way till £11. Now, as soon as, for starters, it takes you a while to get to £11, and as soon as you get to £11, it stays there, and it won't go any further. and that's the pay benefits for customer assistant. For assistant manager and store manager roles and shift manager gets £1 more than the customer assistant, so exactly the same benefits. There's nothing extra. If the customer assistant earns £9.50, the shift manager earns £10.50, and that's how it works. Within the assistant manager, store manager role, the benefits are quite similar, with one, I think, difference for the store manager. Pay and salary is actually quite good if you decide to take a 47.5 contract. They do offer 40-hour contracts in Lidl as well. All you would do is you still do 10 hours a day. All you would do is you have an extra day off, so you have 4 on 3 days, if that makes sense. But keep in mind that they will take 25% of the salary, the advertised salary for that position, which will be right on the average of the country, which is not good enough, in my opinion, in consideration with the work that you do. If you decide to do the 47.5 hours, however, the pay is quite decent and above average. For example, the assistant manager role is currently paying £32,000 a year for assistant manager. That's the basic, all the way to 39, if I'm not mistaken. 38, 500, something like that, so 39. So that's quite good. For example, my salary within the store manager position within Co-op was 32. So it'll be anywhere from 28 to 35 within Co-op. In Lidl, they pay you for being an assistant manager from £32,000 to 39. That's quite good. And you get, rather than 25 days of holidays, you get 30. And the benefits will be exactly the same. The pension scheme will be bigger. That's a bigger contribution. And that's it. For the store manager, the only thing that varies is salary, and they offer you a company car, fully expensed company car. Now keep in mind that that car is coming off your salary regardless. The only thing that you do pay for is the fuel, and the car is, you loaned it from the company, so therefore the APR is quite low. You pay for the actual car and also the actual loan, if that makes sense. And then the salary goes from £41,000 to £53,000. That's incredible for a store manager role as well within Lidl. So absolutely. So in terms of pay and benefits, I believe that Lidl is spot on. I think they pay really well. Yes, you work your butt off, but you know what? That's what you're there for. You're there to work, not to chat about. So I consider the pay and benefits to be a pro within Lidl. I don't see any con here, so I actually don't have a con to give you in here. The only con would be that rather than you doing 47.5 hours, you might do 60, 65. Again, going back to that work-life balance. But it can be your decision to put your foot down and say, sorry mate, I'm not doing that. But do keep in mind, if you're an assistant manager and store manager, the expectation is that you solve your own issues within your store. So yeah, that will be pay and benefits. Major pro, not so much of a con. So yeah, moving on from that. Now, management. This is where things get a bit tricky as well. Pro for me is management within stores tends to be quite good. At least my experience was that. I mean, I was a part of the members of management. I personally was always very open, and I always had my team's back, and they had mine just as well. So I don't have actually any issues within teams within Lidl. So I was quite lucky with store managers as well. I never had major issues. There was one or two that I didn't enjoy working with as much, but the rest was also spot on. They knew what they were doing. They had the experience. They worked hard. They knew what the management role entitled, and they were leaders rather than managers, if that makes sense. So within the store area, management is actually tend to be quite good. So they'll be an absolute pro. The con comes in when you move outside the store. So area managers, even though there is a lot of development going on in Lidl and they promote a lot of store managers into the area manager role, it takes a while, but they do that. Those that do come from the experience from the bottom, they tend to be quite good area managers. The problem is that Lidl hires a lot outside the business. Now, people tend not to understand Lidl from outside, and then they just see these major salaries and this major, oh, I get a car, I get a full expense, and you know, it's just for running 4 or 5 stores, anywhere from 4 to 6 stores. And they don't have any experience. Sometimes they graduate, they come straight off the uni and go straight into a job in Lidl. What that generates is there is no experience there. It generates that the store manager actually more experienced in the business than the actual area manager. He knows the business better than the area manager, regardless of the 12 to 14 months training that the area manager has. that creates a bit of an imbalance and a lot of argument. I've seen it, for example, in 4 years that I've been in Lidl, I had 10 area managers. 10, that's insane. What that means is that the area is not performing correctly. It means your store might be doing well, but the other 3 that the area manager has is not doing so well, because there is arguments going on between an experienced store manager and an experienced area manager. And the reality is not really an emphasis in here. The way they train the area managers is that they tend to train them on looking at numbers and metrics, which is what their job actually is, to be completely honest. However, with such a low productivity, me struggling one day with a person called in sick, and I'm short one person, I'm behind work, and the area manager decides to pop in just because he wants to, and say that the entrance is dirty. That's not how life works, and the reality is that that's not my priority. I have my team to look after. I'm snowballing work because somebody called in sick, and I need to get this done in order for customers actually having products to buy. That's the reality, and that inexperience that area managers don't have. So that's why I believe that the evaluation from Lidl within reviews from employees that management is quite bad. I believe that's where the negativity comes from. It's not actually within the stores, but outside the stores. The reality is a thing that's not really a concern for the area managers, and that tends to create a lot of arguments. So you will be dealing with a lot of inexperienced area managers. Some of them don't even know HR policies that well, which is insane for me, which I've had that before, and I've seen it happening, but that's something you deal with. And out of the 10, I had 2 area managers that I enjoyed working with because they were realistic and they were not afraid to get dirty when I needed them to. That I consider that to be a con. Within management within the team is definitely a pro, because from my experience, we all got along quite well. Just when you move on from the outside, that things tend to get a bit more rougher. But yeah, so moving on from that. Next one. So next one is development and security. Now, the biggest pro in here would be security is guaranteed. Most of their roles are permanent. They don't really hire temporarily. If you are hired for 8 hours, you are hired for permanently 8 hours. So you do have that security in Lidl. Plus, they are a food store. Food is something that people will always need, and if 2020 came and showed us any of that, is that food stores do not close, regardless of how many people they have in store and how many difficulties they are having. They still remain open, and they find a way to be there for their customers. Plus, legally, you can't close a store. So, yeah, but that's something to go on in another video. So yeah, you got the food store. That's the pro. The con within that category would be the development. Now, I consider my development to have been quite good within the first year. However, the next 3 was a constant battle. So the first year, I developed from 24-hour customer assistant job, went all the way to having a full-time position, 40 hours. Within 3 months, I was a duty manager, they call it at the time, which is a supervisor, and then became a shift manager. From shift manager, after 2-year progress, I became an assistant manager. From assistant manager, or senior assistant manager, they call it, and that's how it went. However, the assistant manager role was a constant battle. There is absolutely no difference to what the job role of assistant manager entitles against what a shift manager is, or a supervisor. The supervisor is exactly the same job as an assistant manager does. The only difference is that they don't get the delegation from the store manager. An assistant manager might be in charge of inventory, the other one might be in charge of planogramming, stuff like that, that the shift manager would do. But I've done that when I was a shift manager. So it is a constant battle. So I consider this to be a con, because I actually had to leave the business in order to progress my career. For some reason, they believe that the grass is greener outside. I've seen people coming and going. So I was after the assistant manager position, and they hired 2 assistant managers rather than hiring me, even though I went for the interview and I was realistic as I should. And the 2 assistant managers came in. I had the pleasure to train them both, and they were amazing chaps, awesome to work with, but within 2 months they both resigned. So And after that, they then posted the announcement again saying that they're after an assistant manager, even though I was like with my hand up, yeah, I'm here. I kind of want to take on that role. I don't mind doing hours. I'm putting in the hours, I'm putting in the effort. Why am I not getting the contract? The problem is that in terms of internal recruitment, they are horrible. Absolutely horrible. It's an absolute con in here. And the reason for that is, again, that realistic side of things, they don't actually come into play. The area manager is the person who's giving you the interview together with the recruitment coordinator. The recruitment coordinator has never probably worked in the store, so she doesn't know how it works like. Some of them do, which is absolutely awesome. Some of them don't, so they don't know what the reality looks like. They don't know how to pull tasks out of you, which sometimes is what the problem is. You don't know how to do an interview. They don't take that in consideration. They think that you need to know how to do an interview regardless of how many years you've put and how much effort you've put into here. And then you get that area manager side where if he doesn't have the experience, he will be unrealistic when he's hiring. He will follow a script and he will add points to every answer that you give rather than get to knowing you. And that's how it works. They do have the interview because they are forced to, because that's their policy. But in terms of you getting that position, in my experience, I know people that manage to get through, but in my experience, effort doesn't always equal reward within Lidl, so that's a con in there. But there is definitely development opportunities. Sometimes it's just keep fighting and keep being resilient and not giving up. That was my case. I got it at the end. I just don't think that I should have had to fight as hard as I did in order to get it. But yeah, that's why the development side of that category is also quite a low rating within the internet. So yeah, moving on from there. So the last but not least is the culture. What is the culture like in Lidl? Well, culture is quite similar to what I said on the beginning. They are a discounted supermarket. Culture is they have 4 stores within the area as well. All these 4 stores, they tend to know each other, they tend to have each other's numbers, they need to call each other saying, no, I have this person sick, do you have anyone else that wants extra hours? They will lend them that person. Teamwork is absolutely essential within Lidl, and if you have area, if you get lucky enough to be in an area that operates that way, it's absolutely incredible. Because at some point in time, you don't even know which store manager belongs to which store because they are just moving within the 4 stores. It's just all issues here and there, help out here and there. That's absolutely incredible. They have 5 principles, which I will put on the screen right here so that you know. So there we go. So that is the leadership principles which transfers into their culture. And this is actually in their website. I won't read them all, but it's pretty much what I've just said, which is teamwork is essential, development, your team, trust, taking ownership. You get very low productivity and very low staff to work with. If you are lucky enough to hire the correct people and train the correct people, you absolutely are going to be successful. And but it takes time, it takes life hours, it takes life days. If you're not willing to do that, by all means do not apply, because you will get that sacrifice regardless, and you will be asked to do what you got to do, really, because that's what they hire you for. The identity in here is very awkward, because they want to be the absolute best for their customers, but they don't provide you with enough people to do that, so you end up snowballing work. And then you are too busy taking care of that snowballed work in order to help someone else. So rather than taking this person to the product that they're after, you just end up pointing, the customer gets angry, you get angry, and then the customer service goes to hell. So their identity is quite on the balance. They don't know what they want. They want to be a discounter, but they want to be a high-end supermarket as well. It doesn't work like that. If you want to be one, you have to put in the numbers and the number of people and the number of investments in order to do that. And it doesn't happen. So that's one of the sort of core things that you should take on from this video as well. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I rambled on for longer than I hoped I would. I just wanted to be as honest as I could possibly be. If you enjoyed the video, by all means, give me a thumbs up. Do give me a subscribe if you want to see some more of this sort of videos. But guys, thank you very much for watching, and good luck if you're applying for Lidl. If you're thinking about applying for Lidl, by all means, do research the website, because I believe it's quite interesting and it has quite a lot of information in there on what their core beliefs are. So yeah, cheers guys, bye bye.